So the pandemic / Great Recession throws a lot of monkey wrenches into our efforts to do succession planning. What are some good stories, as you've heard though, about people who've been able to still achieve success despite what COVID has thrown at us when it comes to recruiting new talent and developing that talent? Let's start with Julie on that one.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of success stories because what's happened out there is people have had to step up. And, but again, going back to an earlier point, there's people who, I think maybe it was Elizabeth, there's people who naturally step up and there's people you have to draw into the step. And so, you know, when I think about success stories across the organization, I've watched I always say that people grow in either breadth or depth. And it happens, you go breadth, then you go depth, then you go breadth, you know. And so I think using this COVID opportunity, especially in light of the high turnover, right? I mean, we're at staffing levels where we have more openings than we've ever had. And we can't fill and efficient as a matter as we used to be able to. And that's not a ding on our talent attraction team. It's a reflection of what's happening in the COVID external marketplace relative to just workers. And so, but what that does, and to create that success story, is you kind of watch people naturally shine, and it's easier to take that step up. So I think that's where we've seen the most success stories, is that you know, people who, you know, maybe you wondered if they had it in them or not, have really kind of stepped up and, you know, gone through either a breadth or a depth modification to their current role. And it's exciting to watch. Now, you've got to be careful, right? That's a balance, because you can't just ask for breadth and depth development and not have a plan. So, you know, I mean, and going back to our topic of succession planning, and I've seen this, especially in the COVID environment, is if you're not talking to your people and they don't know they're key to the growth of the business, they're the people that the recruiters are talking to, right? And they're the people that's leaving. And if they leave during this COVID timeframe, shame on you, because you didn't have those conversations. And that's the group that you don't want to lose. So, you know, you've got to kind of balance that, because that's just so important. And during these COVID times, you want those success stories to happen. So it forces more communication during these times than ever. I saw a quote and it said, frequency is the new currency with COVID. And I think that's so true, you know, especially with trying to manage remote, but people need more conversation. And as organizations, we have to look at everybody's span of control, because maybe their span in non-COVID times was acceptable, but when you're managing remote workers, it's not. And if you get that span right, again, you're going to have more success stories. Because, you know, we do have the ability, we're learning now, right, to manage effectively remotely, that is a part of that important leadership space that Jamie was talking about.
You know, building on that, the whole, you know, succession planning, and I love the idea of, you know, it's a system, and, you know, it's not a one-off, it's not something that, you know, you can flip as like a light switch. You build on it, and, you know, you put the processes in place, but it's also I think an attraction tool. So some of the reasons your current people may be leaving is because they don't see that succession opportunity for them. On the flip side, the reason you might be able to attract people is because you've got a succession plan, and you can talk to them during the recruiting process and say, hey, here's our succession system. Here's how we will help you grow when you join us in the organization. So you can really kind of flip that and use that to bring people into the organization.
Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, you know, exactly, Mike. People want to be valued. You know, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So I don't think anybody ever feels bad when, you know, their boss comes in and says, hey, I believe in you. I think you've got potential. I'd like to see you grow here. That's a good thing. But are we having those conversations? And are we, you know, as Julie said, even to a total system, I mean, the plan almost has to be bigger than just what happens if this person leaves or what's the career path for somebody. you know, we almost need to look in terms of the total strategic operation at this point, because the talent crisis isn't going away. So unless we find some way to actually literally get more bodies, the talent crisis isn't going to go away. So we've got to think, okay, what are the things that we can impact? And it's, you know, we can automate and then redeploy that labor that we've automated into, again, that's the career pathing, saying, okay, there's a company we worked with on the West Side that did just that. They automated heavily, and then they took all of those laborers and really did a career pathing succession plan with them to get them to a higher skill level, higher pay grade, but kept, I would say, 80% of them. They were able to upskill, keep them. They're making more money. They're not having the labor issues. Everybody's happy, and then they're then they're using lead technology again to make sure everybody's efficient. And those are things you can do. So you create a culture of embracing people, embracing change, saying, okay, we're going to figure this out. You use technology where you can. You use lean. Those are the things that you can do where you're going to be able to overcome some of this. So it's even almost a higher level strategic plan that you have to take a look at of what makes sense. And the world has changed in terms of what's expected in the workspace and what's acceptable and what people do and don't want. And we can like it or dislike it. We can fight it, but the reality is it kind of is what it is. So you have to really kind of have that. Leaders have to kind of have that. Okay, I've got to take a deep breath and look out past my own emotion, and what am I going to do for this company, and how do we keep this moving forward? So it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, it's not just sitting down like your normal strategic plan anymore, going, okay, what are the metrics, what's sales, what's revenue, what's my cost? There's a lot more, I think, human capital and emotion involved than there ever has been.
Very, very, very true. Elizabeth.
I'd like to add that HR needs PR. We have these great programs, and how do we both internally and externally communicate them? And what I've done in the past at organizations is my HR team and myself would partner up with our internal marketing team, or even we at one point had an external partner in the mix. And we created a recruitment campaign that says, this is who we are, this is what we do, as told through our employees, their experiences. So we had it splashed over our website, our careers page. It was in trade publications. So we took a very, very hands-on, unique storytelling approach of, here's what we can offer you. And here's from our employees' standpoint, their viewpoint, their personal stories. So we created these social media, little snippets of campaign, social media bits across all the platforms. And one of my companies, in my suite of companies, I'm working on the same thing for them, but telling their story, but it's the same framework. So there's ways you can scale it budget-wise, but the more you can have the employees tell your story and have that perpetuate, it not only creates the buzz internally with them to be asked to participate in that, but it fuels the energy throughout the organization, and then externally, it gives you so much credibility. So I would encourage to publicize the good things that your company is doing.
I think that is an excellent idea, and I think particularly the way that you described using social media to kind of push out those stories really gives a lot of amplification to and a lot of momentum behind those stories, and I think that leads into more opportunities, because we know folks, students are coming through universities, coming through community colleges, trade schools. They're on social media, even those. I have a high school junior who's trying to teach me about TikTok, and I don't get TikTok, but those are the sort of things that are attracting those young leaders to organizations, to their next step in professional careers.